You think Light Yagami is the bullied underdog who found a god's power. He's not. If you believe that, you've misunderstood the most important character in Death Note, and you'll miss why his downfall was inevitable. In the next few minutes, I'll show you who Light really was before he ever touched the Death Note. Light was never the powerless kid trapped by the world. Before the Death Note, he was attractive, academically gifted, admired by teachers, trusted by his family, and expected to become one of Japan's top police officers. He had status, intelligence, and opportunity. The real victims were the people who crossed paths with someone who believed he had the right to decide who deserved to live. Most people watch Death Note as a story about absolute power corrupting an ordinary student. But the story becomes much deeper if you flip the question. Instead of asking, what did the Death Note do to Light? Ask, why did Light embrace it faster than almost anyone else would? Once you ask that, every major decision in the series starts making more sense. The Death Note didn't create Kira. It revealed the person Light Yagami had been trying to become all along. Most people remember Light Yagami's story as the story of a normal student who found a supernatural weapon and became a god. But after studying Death Note's writing, Light's decisions, his psychological patterns, and the way he manipulates everyone around him, I realized something different. The Death Note was never the reason Light became dangerous. It was only the tool that revealed who he already was. And in this video, we're going to uncover why the weak teenager who got lucky explanation completely misses the point of Light Yagami. Here's the question I want you to answer by the end of this video. If you found the Death Note tomorrow, would you become like Light? Or do you think you would use it differently? Be honest, because your answer says a lot about how you view power and justice.
Stop calling Light Yagami the underdog. He's smart, attractive, admired by his family, and respected by every teacher. So what was he ever fighting against? And why do millions of people still see him as the bullied outsider? Here's the one detail everyone misses, and once you see it, you'll never look at Light the same way again. Light Yagami was the top student in Japan. Not his school, not his city, the whole country. He was so far ahead of everyone that class bored him. In the very first chapter, before he ever finds the notebook, he's shown solving a puzzle at his desk because the lesson is too easy for him to bother paying attention. His father was a police chief. His mother trusted him completely.
His sister looked up to him. Teachers pointed to him as the example. He was already headed for a future as one of Japan's top officers, maybe even taking his father's job one day. He didn't need to fight for respect. He already had it. Now, compare that to how most stories about hidden power usually work. A weak kid gets bullied, nobody believes in him, then one day he gets a power, and suddenly he matters. That's not Light's story. Light already mattered. People already believed in him. He had status, brains, looks, and trust all before page 1. The real tragedy of Death Note isn't that a nobody suddenly got power. It's that somebody who already had every advantage in life got the one thing that could remove every consequence. Light wasn't missing power. He was missing a reason to stop. That changes the whole question we should be asking about him. If he wasn't desperate or broken, then why did he act the way he did the second he got the notebook?
Light Yagami wasn't afraid of the Death Note. A notebook that kills with a name should terrify anyone. Instead, Light accepted it almost immediately. Why? Here's the hidden piece of his psychology that explains everything. Ryuk, the death god who drops the notebook, tells Light exactly what it does, then basically dares him to try it. Light picks a criminal who's on live television holding hostages, writes his name, and watches him drop dead of a heart attack seconds later. A normal person, even a smart one, would feel horror after that. Guilt, panic, doubt. Light feels the opposite. He feels a rush, a high. The story describes it as almost euphoric, a feeling so strong it actually surprises him. he isn't shaken by what he just did. He's thrilled by it. Ryuk even says later that humans are the most frightening ones to watch because of how fast they'll use a power like this once they have it. He's not surprised by Light at all. He's seen this before. The notebook wasn't a test of what Light would become. It was a test of what Light already was, and he passed that test in under 5 minutes. Most people would have needed years to talk themselves into using power like that. Light didn't need convincing. He needed permission. The Death Note simply gave it to him. So if Light wasn't corrupted by power, what was actually driving him underneath all of it? To answer that, you have to look at one word that keeps showing up in every serious study of his character.
Almost everyone misses the biggest clue about Light Yagami. The writers reveal who he'll become long before he starts calling himself a god. The clue is hiding in plain sight, yet most viewers never notice it. Here's how Death Note tells you Light's fate from the very beginning. A few days after getting the notebook, Light stands alone in his room and says out loud, "I am justice. I'm the one who will become the god of a new world." Nobody is there to hear it. He's not performing for anyone. He actually believes it. Then, a fake detective appears on television, claiming to be the real L and daring Kira to kill him if he's real. Light kills him almost instantly, live, on a broadcast watched by millions. Think about how reckless that is. A person who genuinely just wanted justice and wanted to stay hidden to keep doing good would never take that risk. But someone who needed the whole world to see that he could not be doubted, that person kills on live TV without blinking. That's the pattern researchers keep pointing to. It's called a God complex, tied closely to narcissism. It means a person believes they're always right, always above other people, and they cannot stand being questioned. The moment someone even suggests Light might be ordinary, might be catchable, he reacts like he's been attacked. A hero protects people quietly and doesn't need applause for it. Light killed a man on live television just to prove a point to an audience. That single choice tells you everything. This was never really about justice. It was about being seen as untouchable, being seen as a god. And once someone believes they're above everyone else, the people closest to them stop being people. They become something else entirely. Ask yourself this: if someone truly loves you, do they protect you or do they use you? Misa Amane, a young woman who falls completely in love with Light, ends up being treated like a spare weapon. He uses her power, her devotion, and her trust, and gives almost nothing back. He manipulates her memory, puts her in danger, and drops her the moment she stops being useful. His own father works himself into total exhaustion trying to catch Kira, without knowing his own son is Kira. At one point, his father even collapses from the stress of the investigation. Light shows concern in front of others, but his private thoughts and choices never actually change course. The mission always comes first. There's a scene fans still talk about, where Light calmly kills a group of FBI agents investigating him one by one, while casually eating a snack like nothing important is happening. That single image says more than pages of dialogue could. Killing had already stopped feeling heavy to him. It felt routine. Love, loyalty, and family were never things Light valued for their own sake. They were resources. Every relationship in his life eventually got spent, the same way you'd spend money on the goal of becoming God. That's not a man who lost himself to power. That's a man who was always willing to use anyone standing in front of him. And this is exactly why the ending of his story couldn't have gone any other way. Here's the real question the ending forces you to face. What happens to a person whose entire identity is built on being perfect the moment they finally fail? Nier, a young detective continuing L's work, slowly traps Light using patience and careful planning, the same tools L always used. When the truth finally comes out in front of everyone, Light doesn't calmly accept it. he completely falls apart. He screams, he begs, he refuses to believe it's really happening, even as it's happening right in front of him. Compare that to Elle. Elle played the same dangerous game against Kira for years, knowing he might lose, knowing he might die. But Elle never tied his entire sense of self to being unbeatable. Losing would have hurt him, but it wouldn't have destroyed who he was. Light was never built that way. His whole identity depended on being infallible, on being the god of a new world. So when Nier finally proved he was wrong, it wasn't just a defeat. It was the collapse of the only version of himself he had left. He dies alone on a staircase, and the last thing we see isn't a god. It's a scared teenager who never learned how to be anything else.
Light didn't lose because Nier was smarter than him. He lost because somewhere along the way, he made an impossible bet that he could be right forever. Every person who believes that eventually runs into one problem they can't control. And when that moment comes, there's no version of them left that knows how to just be human again. So here's what the bullied underdog story gets wrong. Light Yagami was never trapped by the world. He was trapped by his own belief that he deserved to rule it. The Death Note didn't turn a good person evil. It removed the only thing that had been holding him back, getting caught. And maybe that's the real reason this story still hits so hard almost 20 years later. It's not really about a notebook, or a death god, or supernatural power at all. It's about a question that has nothing to do with anime. If nobody could ever find out, and there were no consequences at all, would you still be you? Sit with that for a second. Because Light Yagami already knew his answer.
The only real question left is whether you know yours. If this video gave you a new insight, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for being here. See you next week.